Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 30 of What If Kaguya Was Naruto's Mother. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual, share this to all of your friends in your social media platform, and also go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto Was Sent to the Marvel World and enjoy that guys. And over on Anime King 2, I posted a brand new episode of What If Naruto Was a God Amongst Man. So go ahead and check it out and enjoy that guys. And later on, I'm going to be posting a new episode of What If Orochimaru Was Naruto's father. Oh, stay tuned for that and I hope you guys enjoy each and every episode. And remember, if you're new and this is the first time you hear my voice and you enjoy the videos on Anime King and Anime King 2, go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support guys. And yeah, without further ado, let's begin this new episode. Begin the intro.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their
So the last spot we left off, Naruto was at Wave as he dealt with all of the mercenaries outside. Neither of them was a match for him, as Zabuza and Mei Terumi was there as they were going under the order of their Mizukage, as Zabuza was here to take back his sword from Shigetsu who had stolen it, as they tried their best, well Zabuza did, to attack Naruto as he tried to fight Naruto. But one lick sent him flying backwards as blood was inside. He was having internal bleeding. He knew he was going to die soon. He then dashed towards Naruto again as Naruto gave him one strike as his head snapped back as he died instantly. As Mei was scared, she didn't want to fight Naruto as she didn't came here to fight as Naruto told her to run. She didn't want to hear anything else as she quickly headed off. As Naruto went into swift release, as he saw Kakashi in the water with Shigetsu, as Shigetsu brought down his sword to stab Kakashi, as Kakashi was pushing two kunai forward, Naruto grabbed onto Shigetsu's sword and moved it, and he then allowed Kakashi to end it right there. Time skip, as Kushina went to visit Naruto, as she asked him if he could teach Koji how to use swift release from his recent missions, as she knew that Kakashi was kind of in a drift. She knew that he was a good teacher, but from what he went through, she didn't want him to be sloppy on his missions. Seeing that, in his prime he could have easily taken out Shigetsu, but now he was struggling with one, missing Nin. But Naruto told her it was impossible to teach Koji swift release, as he told her to just continue what she's doing and training him, and he surely will improve. We then had another small time skip, as we skipped to our underground base as Konan was beside the leader of the Akatsuki, as a man appeared, naming himself as Orochimaru, and telling them that they will have great benefit once they help him in his plan. As we then had time skip straight to the Chunin exams, as Gaara went on a rampage, as Naruto arrived after sensing the Jinchuriki, as Minato arrived there as well and told Naruto to get to the shelters where the civilians are, and get Koji somewhere safe. He will handle this, as Naruto didn't want to do anything right here, especially with Shikaku in this state, and seeing that his son could handle this. So Naruto headed off with Koji as he was going to the bunkers, as Koji had to report to the academy for further notice, so he went off as explosions started ringing down, as Naruto looked to see a girl fly in the air. She had blue hair and those golden eyes, as Naruto wondered. As he looked at her face, it was her. "Konan!" he cried out as he ran behind her, as he was seeing his daughter for the first time in many years, as she stopped and faced the person who was calling out her name. So yeah guys, that was basically the last part we left off. You guys can enter your across the place and check it out for yourself, so let's begin this new episode. Konan stopped as she looked at the man who was calling out to her, as Naruto was about to ask her to come down, but before he could, Konan launched explosive notes at him again. In an instant, he was on the other roof. It caused Konan eyes to narrow, and he knew that he made some mistake. As she hovered backwards, but she made no attempt to run, merely putting some distance between them. "Konan, please come down," Naruto said. He didn't want to have to use force on his own daughter to make her listen, hoping that she would hear him out at the very least. That being said, he would bring her down against her will if she wasn't going to do so at her own accord. Though, he shouldn't really be surprised. She wasn't here in Konoha to talk. She was bombing the place, and him being a citizen of this village made her hard to even trust or even look at him. She launched another explosive note at Naruto as he jumped on another roof. "Konan, I will give you one more chance," Naruto said, his voice changing from the pleading tone that it had been earlier. He cared not why Konan seemed to hate Konoha, but the reason was interfering with their reunion. "Please land and speak to me." "I don't know how you know my name, Namikaze-san," said Konan. "But if you know that much, you must know why I'm here," as she sent another barrage of paper explosive towards him, as Naruto had to rapidly change his positions to avoid being hit. It was at this moment he had enough. He would speak to his daughter whether she wanted to or not. Dodging a note, he thrust his arm forward, causing his chakra to envelop her body. Expect her head and her wings, as Konan couldn't move, as Naruto slowed the time on her body, as she was stunned, floating in mid-air, as her body then started to fall to the ground. For a few moments she was panicking, knowing a fall from this height would kill her, seeing that her chakra was not responsive to her call, and without reinforcing her body, her impact on the street down below would be but she was cut off as she was caught. At first, she thought it was her leader, but a quick look to the face, she saw it was Namikaze, looking at her with eyes that she didn't recognize, but yet they seemed so familiar. They landed on another rooftop, and Naruto didn't take his eyes off her, as he propped her up against the slanted roof that they were on, as he studied her for a few moments, her similarities between Minami and himself. While her most distinguished features like her hair color and eyes were from her grandparents, the shape of her face mirrored her mother's, just like Minato. The shape of her eyes were the same as his own. "I have waited so long to see you again, Konan," Naruto whispered, as Konan seemed tense, as she was rather confused at the moment as well, as he put all of that confusion to rest with a couple of words. "My daughter." Her eyes widened upon hearing his words, and much like her brother, she did not accept it. Well, at least not completely. He could see it in her eyes. A part of her knew what he was saying was true, as he moved forward to end this war in her mind, that should she believe him or not, as he didn't release her, knowing that there was still some chance that she will run, as he moved his left arm into his right sleeve, as he was looking for the sealing array, as a small amount of chakra channel, as there was a poof of smoke, as he had a small scroll in his hand as he unrolled it, showing Konan their only family portrait. At the end, he could see little Konan with a smile on her face on the picture. "You may not remember me, but I will never forget you, little Kyo-chan," he said, as Konan wide eyes flicker at the use of the nickname, as she remembered it. Said Konan, as Naruto saw the look in her eyes, just like Minato, as she realized that he had enough power to save their mother, yet hadn't. "You! Why?" she said, as her face held a great portion of anger in it, far more than Minato when he had this realization. "Why?" she said, her eyes full of so many fear, why he let their family be split apart. As Naruto suddenly realized that fate wasn't as kind to her as it was Minato. "Konan," Naruto said, his features full of regret, as he remembered a mistake he would never live down. "Shinra Tensei," said a voice, as Naruto was sent flying away. As Naruto saw a glimpse of his attacker, as he was pushed away from his daughter, those eyes, those purple eyes, he hadn't seen those for thousands of years now. The Rinnegan, as Naruto was slammed into a large boulder, as the Deva Path watched as his opponent was sent flying towards the Hokage's monuments. The only reason it wasn't fully destroyed is because Naruto's body hit across the edge, so he didn't compact with all of them. As Pain turned towards Konan, as he was furious that it took him so long to reach her after the paper clone that was with him dispersed. He was God, it shouldn't have taken him so long. It had always been a risk, Konan being temporarily captured by Namikaze, but she had offered to draw him out. Now that she had, it was up to Pain to remove the Namikaze, the elemental sage, completely. After that, their work will be done, and they will be able to take what they need from the stone village to Jinjuliki. With that, and the sample that Zetsu would be taken from the Ichibai, they would at last have what they need to move on to the next step of the plan that Pain was glad for. Madara's disappearance was something annoyance and put a kink in the plan. While Zetsu had kept them in contact with the Uchiha, Pain didn't find what kept him away. The only consolation was that they would meet in person once as the plan take the next phase. Konan, said Tendo Pain. Konan turned as he saw conflict and some enrage, like she was battling with herself mentally. Yes, Pain-sama, she said. You are troubled. What did Namikaze say? He asked. But she then paused. We will speak about it later, Pain-sama. You must focus on the task at hand. As Pain nodded. It is time for you to leave, Konan. This is no longer a place for mortals. But then, the entire place became tense as Konan and Tendo felt some sign of force. Even miles away, with Nagato in his mechanical walker, felt it. The feeling of oppression, of dominance. It seemed like a vengeful god was rising. As Konan understood, the battle that will happen here today will be something to go down in history. As wings spread from her back, as she looked towards her father, and then back towards Tendo as she flew away. Just as she cleared the wall of the village, she saw the monument stone exploded as Naruto pulled himself from the rock, as he could feel the cuts and the bones healing quickly, as it'd been a long time since he was hurt. How? That was a question that came to his head. How did someone manage to gain the Rinnegan? The most obvious answer was that the person was from Uchiha and Senju descent, meaning that their mother was one and their father was the other. But that brought into the question, who? Who were the parents, and how did they keep a child like that a secret from the rest of the world? As Naruto would just focus on the here and now right now. His body has carved a hole inside the Hokage's monument, as the force was only focused on him, and it was a great amount of power. As Naruto then turned, his eyes went wide, as the portrait with Minami, the only thing he had to see her face, was teared into pieces, as there was just a small piece left, the rest of it was disintegrated. The last image that he had of his wife and the happier time he had when they were all together, all of it was gone, as sadness quickly vanished, take over with pure, raw anger to the person that caused this, as the loops that he had on his chakra broke, as everyone started to feel it, as Naruto could feel his daughter moving away from the village towards the outskirts, as he made sure to memorize what her chakra felt like, refusing to lose her once more. He will find her once more, and he will never leave her again. But now, that one with the Rinnegan, who is responsible for breaking his family portrait, as the rage flowed through him, as his black hair vanished, changing to white, green eyes vanished, showing white. The wrinkles and the lines on his face vanished to show a far more youthful face, as chakra danced around him and everyone in the village could feel it, as the wall then exploded. While Naruto Namikaze was sent into the cliff face, it was Naruto Uzumaki that emerged. Pain knew a lot about the elemental sage. Thanks to Zetsu's spine on the man, he thought he had a good grasp over the man's ability. Any elemental techniques that Pain knew was removed from his strategy, as the sage would just rip them away from him and return them tenfold, as he knew that he had to use all sorts of killing attack. Seeing that that was the only thing that would stun him, that almighty push he used, he focused so much power into it, but the man was still up there, as his body had an incredible regeneration ability. Zetsu got some information as well that the sage was the fourth Hokage father and going by the name Naruto Namikaze, as Deva Path had to jump away as the building that he was on was crushed. As he was in mid-air, he felt a fist ram itself right into his gut. As he was sent flying back, his spine snapping as he broke the sound barrier. No sound reached the path's ears, and therefore Nagato as it flew through the air, as it made the sight of Naruto Osusuki floating in the air, horns coming out of his head, his eyes full with so much rage. The path. As Naruto pointed his hand at Deva Path, as lightning started cackling around his hand, as the Deva Path was still flying through the air, as he was being carried straight over the wall, over Konoha. Lightning release, thunder, Naruto said. The world darkened as a new source of light that shined out the sun, lightning that the world has never yet seen, as it teared through the air with a collision to the earth. The Deva Path didn't have time to react or counter, nothing. One moment the sage was above it, and the next moment white lightning filled his vision. As its body turned into ash within seconds, the ash was also evaporated. But Naruto's technique was not disappear when the target was finished. It continued on, carving in the ground below. On the outer walls of Konoha, hundreds, possibly thousands of shinobi had stopped in their fight to see the power. Shinobi of the stone, shinobi of the sand, and shinobi of the new village's sound, and of Konoha, all of them paused as the world gained a new sun. As their feeling quickly turned into panic as all that power was pointed in their direction. As lightning slammed into the ground, a thundering roar as it killed 1,000 people instantly, those engulfed into the core of the attack. Hundreds more than died caught in the edge of the ability and electrocuted. As the lightning drilled down into the earth, carving itself a home, tunneling hundreds of meters. As a hole over a kilometer deep would remain as a sign of the elemental sage power. With Konan, what was that? As she watched him clench his fist and his eyes tighten as he was looking at something she couldn't see. As her leader was furious. As Nagato didn't answer her straight away, focusing on his path. The Deva Path has been eliminated, he said. Konan stiffened immediately. The Deva Path was his strongest in power, as that put him at a great disadvantage in the battle. It was also Yaiko's body. Is it possible to revive him? Konan questioned. No, said Pain, as he had a tone in his voice that Konan had never heard before. It was fear. Things that he shouldn't feel, because he thought that he was a god. But now, he was feeling fear. He was scared. As Pain realized that he did something stupid. As Zetsu had told him about the power of the elemental sage, but he thought he was a descendant of the Sage of Six Paths. He was a god, no one could touch him, so he discaled the elemental sage power, thinking that he was above him. But that was a grave mistake, sending Tendo Pain in alone, allowing the other paths to take the longer route. It was a mistake, a big one. But while Yaiko's body was lost, he still had the power flowing through him. He could change it with another path, but that path will lose the power that he possessed, because he cannot give one of them two power. Thinking quickly, he decided to remove the human path from the play. While that path was the easiest way to kill the sage, it would take too long. He would have to get to him and rip out his soul, and he was sure that the man would not allow that to happen. So with that made, he quickly changed the chakra he was sending to the human path, and like that he became the new Deva Path. It was not a moment too soon, as immediately after, Naruto touched down before his remaining paths. Pain wasted no time as he quickly sent his path into defense and attack. The paths that were best to attack was the Ajora and Prida path, and the new Deva path, while the Animal and Naruka path took up position behind their brethren. Unlike before, Naruto didn't attack, as Pain just saw the man staring at them, as he was just looking at them, trying to figure out what was going on. What was he looking at? As Pain was a bit angry, Setsu was able to gather information about the man, but didn't tell him about his appearance. He had horns growing through his head. It looked like they had skin growing over them. It didn't look like horns, like bones breaking through body. It looked like it fit him. And also his eyes were white as his hair. As it made Pain wonder, just how did Zetsu gather this information? Meanwhile with Naruto, he noticed them. Once, that one came in the village, 5 other chakra signatures. As he wondered what were these people doing? Make different people have the same chakra signatures. It was unnatural. Was this all done to gain the Rinnegan? Perhaps they bestowed the Rinnegan to multiple people. Now, with them standing before him, Naruto had to take a moment to find out what exactly they were. Were they clones of the same person with modification so they wouldn't look the same way? That would explain how they all had the Rinnegan. Maybe they were all puppets and the one pulling the strings wasn't even here. That would mean they didn't really have the Rinnegan. It was just a connection between puppet and puppet master. The piercing that they all were wearing may be a part of it, even the ball one had it. Though it may be some sort of ritual that this group was a part of, and just done for a fashion sense. As Naruto noticed, they were also studying him, trying to figure him out. He decided to test a theory as he molded his chakra. Water mixed with yin and yang becomes something more specialized. Blood release. It was to check if their hearts were beating, but they failed. As Naruto blinked out of existence, as all of their vision was obscured by a white haze. Cloud release, God's blindfold. As the white haze grew and expanded as it was 100 meters in any direction from the center. It was like a cloud had descended down to earth. But that was not the true reason of the technique. This technique allowed Naruto to gain knowledge on anything that entered the cloud, gain information about the strings that were pulling behind the scenes. As the technique was activated for only a second before the Deva path blew it away. As Naruto let it happen, as the cloud blew into the direction where the chakra strings were coming from. Simply because it moved, it didn't mean that it was broken, as the cloud allowed him to sense where the main chakra source was coming from. Soon enough he will have the location of the puppeteer. Now it was time to deal with the puppets. The bald-headed one attacked first, with the bulky one behind him. As Naruto thrust his fist forward, as he watched a piece of metal burst through the bald-headed one's arm. But Naruto grabbed his wrist and swung him around and threw him into the bulky figure, as the both of them were sent crashing away. As Deva then came right in his face. Shinra Tensei, he said, but Naruto activates Swift Release as he simply moved out of the path. As Naruto combined wind and fire, as he placed a hand on the path's shoulder. Scorch Release, Desiccation. As it took only a moment before the path started to look like a dried out husk, as he thrust the body to the ground that withered away into dust. As Naruto then activated his chakra around him as he blocked a beam of energy that was coming from the bald head's one head, as it was only a distraction though. A large, strange looking canine with twin head emerged with black piercing and wings on his back, with Rinnegan as well. Naruto frowned, knowing that this puppet user was using the Rinnegan ability to summon creatures. It seems like they knew their ability to create new creatures, but unlike Hagoromo, they did not leave it off a leash. As the creature started to rush towards Naruto, as Naruto mixed earth, water and lightning chakra to create a more complex chakra nature. Mirror Release, Deflection. As soon as he muttered those words, the beam that was hitting his chakra cloak, that was protecting him from the bald head's one, it started to reflect. As it hit the creature, trying to cut it in half, the bald head one quickly stopped his attack. As Naruto turned back to the bald one to finish him off, but he heard flesh being torn apart. As he turned to see the canine, it split itself into two, as each of them then gained another head along another wing. As the both of them charged towards him again, as the dog jumped at him, but Naruto simply waved his hand as a large metal tear from the nearby building and slammed right into the dog, forcing it into the ground. As he waved his hand again as the metal bent itself and dig right into the creature's body, restraining it. As another puppet tried to attack Naruto, as Naruto realized something, these puppets only have one ability each. They have not shown a second, the only exception being the part that he just killed. As Naruto grabbed the puppet hand, but the puppet wasn't even moving. As Naruto then noticed something, it was stealing his chakra. This amount of chakra would kill a person, but Naruto was no regular person. It was like using a spoon to take out a drop of water out of a lake. Hagoromo had tried to use and take a lot of his chakra, and not even that was enough to make Naruto go down to his knees. So what did this pretender could do? As Naruto's eyes shift into an icy blue, "You want my chakra? Then take it," Naruto said, as his chakra flowed into the puppet. It was ice chakra, while the puppet can absorb most of it, but he couldn't handle it, as Naruto started to blast it down his chakra paths, as the puppet's skin turned white and then turned a cold blue, as ice started to grow outward and encase the puppet, as Naruto's hand was still inside of the ice, as he pulled it back, but the ice then broke, shattering the puppet to pieces, his limbs and his arms broken off. As Naruto noticed the body parts disappear in a poof of smoke, wondering why, as he then heard metal scraping on metal, as it was from the bald head one, as he dislocated his wrist to reveal a secret compartment. As Naruto could remember these, he remembered his brother using something similar, though rarely, as the tubes of metal that sprouted from the wrist, they were some kind of projectile, as the metal tools blast out and launch themselves at him. As they approached, the metal started to swirl around to throw Naruto off, but it didn't. As Naruto's eyes turned orange, as his chakra surged, rust release, decay, he said, as his chakra exploded outward and enveloped all of the metal objects, as the metal started to decay at a rapid speed. Within moments, it changed from a metallic color to a dull brown, as all of them withered away like dust. As Naruto turned to the puppet that had the ability to summon, as it retreated back up on a building, as it was looking down at him, he could only guess this was the reason why the other puppet that he killed disappeared. As Naruto disappeared, as he appeared on top of the roof, as he saw the puppet that had disappeared while his body was being disintegrated, as it was back, and also he saw the King of Hell, that thing his brother called the King of Hell, with ice on its tongue, trying to bring back another puppet that he destroyed a moment ago. As Naruto remembered what the King of Hell did, it returned the body to an undamaged state, reversing any harm or damage. As Naruto scanned through all of them, and it was easy to figure out that the last one, as the feminine one summoned, and the one that he destroyed used gravity, the second one absorbed chakra, so that one was the one who was using the King of Hell, the bulky one. As he shifted target from the feminine puppet to the other one, as he appeared behind it, as he turned around to lock eyes with him. As Naruto activated swift release on his fingers, he thrust them forward and placed them on the puppet's chest, and then spread them. As the body exploded, he extended 5 fingers. It was like the body was being pulled in 5 directions, and it couldn't take it anymore, so it exploded. Immediately, the King of Hell disappeared, as it took the body of one of the puppets with it back into the portal that it came from. The long-haired puppet that had the gravity pointed his arm at Naruto, as Naruto had enough of this. Shinra Tensei, he said, but Naruto was no longer in a playing mood. He wanted to end this now. Erase release. Return to nature, Naruto said, as this ability dispelled all of the yen chakra of the technique, causing the technique to collapse, as all of the puppets stiffened, when it didn't affect Naruto at all. As Pain wondered, could he find a way to counter his technique? Enough! This game is over, said Naruto. At that moment, Pain didn't know what came over him, as he replied, "This is not over, Namikaze," as the words were spoken out of the Path's mouth. That was a big mistake. Hearing his last name, Naruto knew that he knew about him, and his family could be brought into this. As Pain didn't know where it came from, he could even feel it from where he was. All of its path went on their knees as chakra, pure chakra, made them bow. The more that was released, Pain wondered, did this man even have a limit? As he could sense that endless amount just flowing out of the man, crushing down his path to their knees. As Pain regained control to see the animal path take a fist to the face and send it flying down, crashing through the building that they were standing on. Path came on a crashing way down to the ground, but Pain knew that it was done for. The animal path bones were shattered into pieces, organs were twisted and exploded, and that was before the building came down on top of it. As Pain focused on what he had left, the Deva, formerly human path, and the robot path was all that remained, as both of them watched as Namikaze stepped out of the cloud, anger on his face. As Pain then heard metal grinding, as the robot path body was being crushed by some unseen force, he only received a few more seconds of vision through the robot path eyes before it was crushed completely, as he could now look out of the Deva path eyes, as he then saw those white eyes staring back at him, as he was yanked by his rope roughly and thrust towards a building. as he tried to stop himself from crashing hard, but he heard a voice behind him. Swift release. Mortal life. One moment he could see that building coming, then the next, he was near to the wall of Konoha, where the Konoha ninjas were keeping out the invaders, as the path arm and legs were destroyed, as he could only watch helpless as it skidded into the earth, as he could see nothing but death. It was no over. The Akatsuki had lost. Before he could, he felt his path moving, but it wasn't him, as it was floating in the air. As the head turned, as he saw the perfect view of Namikaze, as he then saw behind Naruto, had hit him so hard he went through them within a second. That is the reason why his limbs were that way. All of the bones were ripped apart through the buildings as he teared through. For a moment he realized how horribly outmatched he was, able to do nothing but stare into those white eyes. As he could see age in them, it was the same thing he saw when he looked at the statue. That demonic statue. The elemental sage was older than he could guess. He knew the man was powerful, knew that he had lived longer than any mortal. He knew this, yet he sought out the man, overconfident on the power of the Rinnegan, thinking he could take down anything in his way. As many shinobi stopped, as they stared at the hovering body of the path, and also the elemental sage. Blood release, demonic body, spreading, Naruto said. As the body exploded, but the blood wasn't gone, as the blood dashed down and started to pierce right through the invaded shinobis, as most of their heads were ripped off by the force, as the blood was just tearing right through them. 10 turned into 100, and 100 turned into 200, and 200 turned to 300, as shinobis were being ripped down. It then vanished. As the invaders watched the dead bodies of their friends, their comrades on the ground, as Naruto then closed his hand into a fist, returned, as hundreds of bodies, as they were screaming, flying towards where the body was, as they all collided with a boom. It was truly horrible. All of those who witnessed would never forget them, as this would go down in history. Hundreds of shinobis all collected into a massive ball. Screams and moans from those who wasn't crushed completely by the other bodies. As Naruto looked down at all of them, they were aligned with the Rinnegan bearer. They chose their side, the first weapon that struck Konoha wall. However, just because they chose the wrong side doesn't mean that they deserve torture, as Naruto gained nothing from it. In the end, it was just needless suffering. So he ended their suffering. As he tightened his fists, and everyone could hear snapping as necks snap and bones, body parts snap as they break apart and just squeeze all together. As all the moan and pain crying was stopped. As Naruto released his hand as all the bodies dropped to the ground, the remaining body parts. Pain, Nagato, the real one, closed his eyes as he lost. But it wasn't over. Whether it was next week, next month, or next year, he will be back. He will be stronger, faster than ever, and smarter. This could not be how his dream ends. After gaining all that power, the Rinnegan, he could not die so easily. It's time to leave, Konan. We must return. Zetsu must have already taken what we need from the Ichibai. What about the stone? Asked Konan. Regardless of the outcome, we perform our path. They will grant us access to their Jinchuriki, or we will grant it ourselves. What about our need for secrecy? Konan reminded her leader, but he simply shook his head. We can no longer remain secrecy. The elemental sage opposes us, and with Konoha backing him. Come on, we must now move quickly. Pain eyes then snapped towards the doorway in their hideout, as Konan looked over as well, as they couldn't believe it. The elemental sage Naruto Namikaze was standing at the doorway. As he took a step forward, his white eyes locked on the only purple eyes in the room. Did you really think I'll let you escape? Naruto said, as Konan stepped forward in front of her friend and her leader, ready to protect him and give her life if need be necessary. As they noticed his eyes soften when he looked at Konan. Konan, please step aside. I am afraid I can't do that, Namikaze, she said, as her eyes gave away nothing. As Naruto sighed at his daughter, as Naruto slammed his foot into the ground, as dust and debris blew everywhere in the hideout, as Pain and Konan closed their eyes for a second, but they were quick to open them. As Konan looked around, the tree, All of it was gone. They were exposed in the open air, with only the stump of the tree remaining. She focused on Naruto only to see his eyes glowing grey and the sound of metal tearing apart behind her. As she watched, all 4 legs of Pain Walker was ripped off by invisible force. As this caused the walker to collapse to the ground, as Pain let out a low growl, as Konan quickly spun around, as she was looking directly into white eyes that stared back at her. Memories that have driven her in her darkest time rose to the thoughts of her mind, with a man with black hair and green eyes, along with a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, and their face was blurry. As hands holding her and brushing her hair, she felt it all over her skin. A whisper in her ear, a man's voice, telling her that he will always love his Kyo-chan. A woman saying how beautiful she was. What little she remembered of her family came to the forefront as she stared into her father's eyes. They may have been different color, but his eyes reminding her of parented love. "I'm sorry, Kyo-chan." As her father's eyes changed from white to an icy blue. As ice came from the ground and trapped her, only her head and neck was left free. As she struggled, trying to break free, but nothing she could do was getting her moving. As Naruto walked past her and moved towards Pain, as she forced her neck to twist around to look at him. "No," she said, "stop!" As she watched her father stop, but it wasn't because of her, he was speaking. "Where did you get those eyes?" "They are mine," Pain said. "You're lying." As Konan calmed down herself as she manipulated her chakra and forced it down to the stump on her feet. "Who else has them?" her father questioned Pain again. "There is only one God." As Konan was concentrating, but she couldn't see her father or her leader, but she could feel the tension rising. As pieces of bark started to break and float up, as Konan started to flatten them. "Don't lie to me," Naruto shouted. "Do not force me to take the information from you by force." Pain remained quiet, and for a moment Naruto did not move either. But then he stepped forward. "Very well." "No," Konan said. As she finished her work, what were pieces of bark flattened and turned white into paper. As they all dashed forward and tear right into Konan's ice restraint. As she found that she had some range of movements, but she still didn't break free completely. As she twisted her neck to see what was happening. As Konan watched him reach forward to touch Pain. Fearing the worst, she launched all her papers towards Namikaze. Time slowed down as her paper flew through the air, 30 odd pieces, ready to slice him through its vital points. But he spun around and all her paper froze. Konan too froze as she realized she was not the only person with her ability. Not only did he have her ability, he could use it better than her as he took control away from her. This was just more proof that he was her father. As she then watched Pain pull one of his arms from the contraption as he thrust forward to the back of Namikaze's head. As Konan knew what he was about to do, he was going to remove her father's soul from his body. But guys, in the end of this episode right here, if you want to see the next part of this, you already know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn that bell notifications stay posted. Remember to cheers to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also stay in tune for what if Orochimaru was Naruto's father. And I hope you guys enjoy each and every episode. And remember, if you're new, to go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become a part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support, guys. And yeah, without further ado, I'm out for now. See you guys. Peace.